computer first arrived. So we're going to talk about something that I'm hearing very frequently from the CIOs that I talk with about mobile first, the rise of the mobile platform as what appears to be the dominant form of personal computing. It's not quite there yet, but I'm going to make a case for what the opportunities are, what the trends are, what the challenges are, and then interact with you at the end. We can take questions via Twitter or in person. Those of you that know me will know me best probably from my work with social computing. But if there's one thing that we've really heard from all of our clients over the last year and a half or so is this sudden demand, this pull from across the organization, from inside the executive suites of large organizations saying, I want all service delivery. I want everything available on tablets, on iPads. And I look around the audience here and I see lots of smart devices and very few what we would call traditional computing devices, laptops. That appears to be going by the wayside. So when we look at how to apply technology to the way we transform business, we look on this graph here, the map of opportunity. We look for some way that will help us grow our companies or grow what we do from a capability perspective, or to reduce costs, to drive productivity and efficiency. And one of the interesting things about mobile is that it operates in the margins. It gives us an opportunity to get things done when we wouldn't normally be able to. You know, if there's one thing that's revolutionary about the new mobile devices is the simple thing of that they're always connected if we want them to be. We also realize that we're in a very different business environment, a very highly digital world in the 21st century, and we have to transform our organizations such that we deliver to where our customers are, and our customers have moved, and we'll talk about that. And we also want to tap into all the innovation that's possible. But we live in an era where technology change is happening faster than ever before. Not only is there a literal tsunami of new mobile devices, apps, and technologies, but the communications channels of the world have been rewired. Social media, which also has a lot of mobile implications, has arrived, and it's how most of us communicate. Email is in decline. We hear about the rumbles of the cloud and software as a service, these apps that can do whatever we need, and they're so easy to access that we want to not go to our IT departments and just use them, get things done. There's a shift to do-it-yourself, DIY with technology. We're much more comfortable. All of us are becoming competent technologists. I know this room is filled with people that are in the industry, but we see broadly in the world that people say, I have all these great things on my device, and I want to be able to use them at work, and I don't want to wait. Why can't we have the benefits now? And then the fact that all these devices, mobile devices in particular, are packed with sensors, and we'll talk about that. They create great opportunity, but an endless stream of information and media, right? Video and audio and text and location information and streams off of all the sensors, right? That can provide business value, but they're flooding us with data. And we have to be able to deal with that for the opportunity. And so all this change is happening, a literal perfect storm of technology change. We haven't had a lot of changes in the industry. The internet came a while back, then open source, and some interesting things, but they weren't revolutionary. They weren't game-changing. And then all of a sudden, all sorts of things showed up. Our user experience finally changed. We moved away from the graphical user interface, the mouse click, for the first time in a generation, touch-based interfaces. How we did delivery, right? Moving away from data centers to the cloud, moving to the browser, getting software from app stores, right? The PC is in decline. Email is being challenged by multiple forms of communication. So how we communicate, how we get information, where the innovation comes from. It doesn't come from the enterprise world nearly as much. In fact, the vast majority of innovation, by far, comes from the consumer world of technology and is flowing into our organizations. This is our signature challenge, right? Even the whole NoSQL movement, right, which is based here in San Francisco, talks about, hey, the amount of information and how we organize it and how we process structured and unstructured knowledge doesn't work the old way we used to do it. We have way too much of it, and we need answers now. We need to be able to see the totality of information in our businesses and in the world and be able to ask questions. There's a reason why IBM's Watson is so popular. So we plot the trends of all the things that are happening, the disruptive technology. We have this wave, that's the blue line there, that says all this stuff is suddenly changing, right, just in the last 3 years. And while how we do things the old way is still the primary way, the dominant way, it's going to change. And we'll look at that, at some of the data that shows how that change is going to happen faster than we would probably like and that we're ready for, or even that we can organize around to adapt. But the one thing is clear. Mobility is the future of service delivery. I see the pull is so profound. And while touch-based devices and mobile devices aren't going to be the only way, they're going to coexist with much of what we have, but we see that smart mobile outshipped PCs a year ahead of schedule in January of 2011. If the tablet growth stays linear, they'll outsell PCs by 2015, but we'll see that tablet growth, or actually smart device growth, is nonlinear. It's growing exponentially, which is, you can do the math on that one. So the speed of adoption of mobile platforms is the fastest it's ever been. And I know these graphs are small and you can't see them. But basically, they say that if you look at the graph on the right, says if you look at all the other advances we've had, it's never advanced. It's never been adopted that fast. Tablets is on the top of that curve. And the more bearish plots are below that. In fact, tablets are far and away having the fastest penetration of any device, any technology. It wasn't sure. It looked like gaming devices. We're going to win that. Well, that's not the case anymore either. There's going to be a billion Android activations in the next 12 to 14 months. That's an amazing amount of devices. And they're going to change what we have to do because our customers are going to expect us to be competent and to deliver our information, mobile enable our intranets, all of our enterprise applications, and make all the stuff out there safe and work and handle the corporate information, right? I hear Dropbox and Evernote, for example. That's what people want. Workers are just putting tons of data out there, not even realizing that stuff all goes out to the cloud. And we have to make that work. So the speed of adoption is really disruptive. So this really shows the growth, the linear growth of PCs. I mean, PCs are actually, they're only in decline if you look at it in comparison to the growth chart on smart devices, that's an exponential curve. Right? And PCs are growing linearly. So smart devices already rule the roost. It's just that we're not really good. We don't have the management infrastructures and the skills and the competency. I hear a lot of organizations saying, I want to get good at doing this, but I basically have to outsource it if I want to do it fast, because I can't train everyone and change everything that we do. It's a real challenge. Yet the world's most important channels look very different than they did a little while back. Social networking, mobile, and search, those are the world's most important channels today, period. There's other important channels, but these are the three most important. And we're not really, as enterprises, we don't really focus on that. We're not really good yet at this because this is new. Yet this is where our core competency needs to lie. So the change keeps coming is one of the messages here. And if you look at the rise of social and mobile apps, because I hear a lot of serious enterprise IT people say, well, that's great, but most of the stuff isn't business focused. Well, these are graphs of the different types of social and mobile applications, and a surprisingly large number of them, although they're down on the curve, are for serious business uses. They're for things like financial planning or travel or other things that are really important to businesses. The app stores, and we'll talk more about app stores before we're done here today, but the app store is really training people for the amazing variety and volume of solutions that are available one click away. So to really size up how fast and how significant this changes, and it really is a revolution, even though I think it's the most accessible one compared to a lot of the other things that organizations are facing. This is one we can do, actually. I feel pretty good that most organizations are going to get there, unlike some of the other changes that are happening. The tablet industry is only 2 years old, yet the latest data from the Pew Internet Services Research Services shows that 19%, as of last month, 19% of people in the United States now own a tablet. That's phenomenal for something that's an industry that's just 2 years old. That's what we talk about fast penetration. 50% of all phones globally are now smart devices. That's a very big change from 2 years ago when it was much, much smaller. There's over 1 million mobile applications, over 100,000, well over 100,000 tablet applications. That's an amazing amount of innovation and a velocity where there's not only a gold rush mentality, but there's a lot of pull. People are demanding, saying, I need this to be tablet enabled, right, because that's where I'm spending a larger and larger amount of my time. What's interesting is, and we're going to get into, smart devices and smart mobility are not just about laptops without keyboards. There's a fundamental difference. The average number of real-world sensors in a mobile device is 12. That far exceeds usually the webcam that's available in most laptops. And what's interesting is 80% of all companies have some form of bring-your-own-device policy. And some of the things I'm starting to hear are quite radical. In the Bay Area, there's a large company whose CIO says, we're going to give employees $5,000, new hires $5,000, they can get whatever they want. But we're not going to issue them any of our own IT. We're actually, bring your own device is the default policy. We're going to help you get on board. You may not have anything, but we're only going to pay you once. That's the kind of changes that are happening. And at the same time, we see how the communication's being rewired, that there's been a large migration of digital natives, that about 1 billion people are now communicating using different methods, and they're primarily doing it now on mobile devices. So the message here is that people have moved, and unfortunately, us as companies, we've fallen behind, right? So there's these new mobile, social, and very large new digital channels. App stores and even things like online games are one of the largest digital ecosystems that currently exist now. If you look at Zigna and some of the other things that they're doing in the populations that they have and how people actually collaborate. The whole enterprise gamification thing is fascinating. But the message here is that 1 billion digital natives have moved and changed tools, changed platforms, and they're now waiting for us, right? And it's actually an enormous opportunity. But the challenges are there. The channel fragmentation is really the issue. One of the things I hear a lot now is organizations wanting to understand, well, I need to actually digitally enable these things that I have so they work on mobile devices, but what do I pick? Windows 8, BlackBerry, iOS, Android, that's too much. And we'll talk a little bit about HTML5. That should level the playing field, but we do not see end users want that. They want the speed and instant satisfaction and the features of native applications. So that's creating platform fragmentation, channel fragmentation. It used to be we had to have a website, had to work on one browser. Now that just will not work anymore, right? Same thing on mobile devices. The service delivery, delivering our capabilities, how do we do that? So we talk about mobile enterprise application platforms, MEAPs, are a hot topic right now. No one knows how it's going to play out, if that's where it's going to be. But these are now the de facto primary channels for customer and worker engagement. They expect an app, and it better be good because they know how good it could be. They see really good apps all the time. The bar is high, and they want it now. But our challenge is to figure out, well, where do we do it? Where do we start? And that doesn't mean we don't already have a lot of IT. That's one of our challenges. We have a lot these days, right? We don't see systems being retired nearly as fast as we see new systems coming on board. We have dozens of major internal service channels that have to be mobile enabled. So we really see our classical world of IT is being threatened by this disruption, right? So you got smart mobility, social media, the whole consumerization, that software's got to be really easy and work really well and be deeply integrated and be very accessible, right? People now realize that there should be a lot more solutions available for them to get their job done. If there's a situation, there's an app for that. Why can't they have it? And if you don't get out ahead and give them something like Evernote, they're going to use Evernote, and our organizations will pay the penalty. And cloud and big data, all of that it's external technology change that we've got to gear up for. So this consumerization mindset is part of the issue. If you're a millennial under 30 years old, you're over 50% of them in a widely covered Accenture survey said that they're going to use, they don't care what the policy says, they're going to use their own IT to get their work done, right? It's not so hard, they can do it themselves, right? They know there's an app for that problem, and they can just get it for free and throw it away when they're done, right? Disposable IT is one of the things that these new ecosystems, mobile ecosystems, create the possibilities for it. That's one of the exciting things about them. They know that what they need is just a URL away, so they want it simple, fast, and easy, right? It works the way they want it to. They don't really care about how we want them to do it. That is a real challenge. So while we're still fairly immature, right, the problem is that it takes us a long time as organizations to metabolize technology. We're really not as fast as the world is because individuals can adopt technology much faster than large organizations who have to have all the ceremony and process around it. Right? So while we're now very competent at all the old stuff that we did in the 20th century, we're getting good at the stuff that we should have been really good at fast in the 90s. We're quite immature at all the things that are now expected of us, and that cycle's happening faster and faster. And that's going to be one of our signature challenges. And on my blogs and other places, we really have been trying to foster this industry discussion saying, how do we need to change to do it? how do we transform to mobile delivery, right? How do we get the growth that's possible by giving our customers self-service CRM applications and worker touch points so they can quickly get have their needs met and get their work done. There's entirely new business models. We'll look at them in just a minute that are possible because of things like app stores. They're well monetized. In fact, Apple will let you anything you want to monetize inside an app, you can. After they get the application, you can do all sorts of in-app purchases. It's the new e-commerce. Most companies are barely looking at this. I'll provide examples momentarily. Innovation in terms of entirely new things you can do with what smart devices are capable of. Avoidance of disruption if you don't, right? And then cost reduction. We see that is starting to happen. And one that's really important, and this is one of the things we talk about, is that the lifespan of the average company has plummeted over the last 50 or so years. The average S&P 500 company last 75 years ago, in 1940. It's only 15 years now. And if you look at the other charts, you can kind of see why. The chart on the upper right is the pace of technology adoption, right? It's getting faster and faster and faster. And the companies that can adapt to the new environment survive, and the ones that can't, which large organizations, unless they're really organized for it, can't do it. We're seeing that. There's other causes as well. But you can see that there seems to be a cause and effect. So the message here is, even our largest organizations, no small system can withstand sustained contact with a much larger system without being fundamentally changed or, and this is the challenge, disrupted. So we look at mobility brings new technologies, new processes, new organization, and new business models with it. There's a lot of stuff in there that we have to absorb, and that's the issue. And the majority of these have been validated and proven in scale in the consumer world, and now are banging on our door saying, let us in. We can provide a lot of value, and your customers want us. So how do we do it? So this is another view. This is Mary Meeker's great data for presentations, talking about how the mobile internet is ramping up faster than the desktop internet did 5 times faster. Remember how hard it was to get our companies on the web way back in the day? Well, this new change is 5x faster. So I keep harping on the speed, but that's part of our challenge, because by the time you plan to do something, I see mobile strategies, even though companies want to do them in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, it takes them a year. And by the time they're done, the entire landscape has changed, right? New technologies and new possibilities are already there, and people want to be using them. And this is the challenge. The best way to connect with the future world, right, is to get an app on the first screen of the smart device, whatever that is. We've done that research extensively, and that's one of the things we've learned. Even though they text message and use Facebook, if you want to establish a direct contact with somebody now, build an app and make it compelling and make sure that you get it so that you want to use it all the time. So let's start talking about where the value actually comes from. Where does next-gen mobile really provide the goods? One, being far more connected all the time. That's part of the magic. We don't have that with laptops. Some people have hotspots, but smartphones and tablets are always connected. They're also consequently much faster in a number of ways to use, very, very quickly, low barrier to access to information. And they're easier to use. The user experiences of these consumer mobile applications is amazing. And most of you know what I'm talking about. I see the devices on the tables. They're fun. And I always, when I say that, there are a lot of enterprise IT types kind of squirm in their chairs saying, well, we're not really in the fun business. But that is what we're up against. We have competition now in the enterprise. App stores on the devices we're handing out to our workers are making work fun, right? Far more engaging. When something is enjoyable to do, it's far more engaging. Access to everything. One button control over your life. I've got now a thermostat I can control on my smartphone. I have my Sonos music system I control on my smartphone. I have everything. I mean, it's amazing what I can do now. I can control my life in a way it was impossible a couple of years ago. And that gives us less control, by the way, is things like app stores disintermediate us as IT. There's a million apps one click away. How are we going to compete with that, right? So what we see, the expected functions, what's going to happen is aggregation is huge. We're actually seeing point individual applications, accessing one bank account or one back-end IT system are not what people want. They want it all connected, and they want one single view. Right? They're starting to get used to that because there's so many aggregation, really good aggregation apps. We'll talk about those if we have time. In-phone assistance and a concierge. I made this slide before Siri, the talking system on the new iPhone. But that's what, it's in response to that. People want it to be very easy and say, just help me. Give me the information I need now, and I don't know how to ask for it. But you'll figure it out. I'm not worried. And Wolfram Alpha is integrated right into Siri. You can ask it some amazing questions, and it will just give you the answer, like how many molecules are in a drop of water. It'll just tell you. Social features. Everything is getting social. Everything's getting a sharing and a like button. And your applications inside your organization, they need it too. Maybe not sharing to the outside world, but to your internal social networks. Location awareness. That's one of the biggest wins when we talk about some hard-hitting examples about how people are transforming their organizations. We'll discuss that. People want native functionality, not HTML5, even though I see a lot of IT departments saying, we're going to solve this with HTML5 as multi-platform. It just does not work nearly as well yet. People are not as satisfied. They want native capability. I see a lot of self-service CRM, CRM Lite. That's the first applications that are being created, usually empowering the sales team or empowering the customers so they can self-serve. They can download the app and they can interact with the company in a much more effective way. And other trends as well. So here's an example. I know it's hard to see this slide, but I was talking to a financial services organization, and I showed them how their competitors, Fidelity Investments and Vanguard, were on the App Store. And they had free apps, and they're actually relatively popular. I looked at the number of ratings. Both of them have hundreds of ratings. But both of them have either 2 stars or only 3 stars. But there's one nimble digital competitor called Page Once. They have now 20 million customers, and they don't give away the app. They charge for the application, $6.99. Look at the ratings. It's almost completely 5-star. They charge for it. And by the way, they let you look up your Fidelity Investments in Vanguard and everything. The challenge we have with mobile is that in terms of engaging with the world, customers want ease, control, speed, and results. They don't care how they get it or who provides it to them. And these digital companies are figuring out ways to create much more compelling touch points with our partners and our customers, and most disturbingly, perhaps, our workers. There's many examples I can show of companies building these sorts of things that are just basically making IT irrelevant, even though it can't be. We make it work. We make it safe. We make it secure. But are we going to get into the business issues? That's going to be the challenge. So you can do really exciting new things you really couldn't do with previous computing devices. This is not paving the cow path. Smart mobile is not about, oh, I'm now connected all the time. And we just do that to our laptops, we can do the same thing. So those of you, how many of you have seen the Star Walk application on the iPad, or any one of the observatory ones, applications where you can look in the sky and actually see through the wall and see what's up there? That began to show what was possible. But I still get a lot of questions from business users saying, yeah, but that's not impressive to me from an enterprise perspective. How is that really going to, how are all these sensors really going to change the way that we work? One of my favorite apps is called WordLens. And there's a picture of it, the biggest one on the bottom. What it is an augmented reality application. You download a language pack, and you walk around a foreign country, and you hold it over things, and it does real-time translation, even changing and rewriting the text that it sees inside the phone. So you can see that they're looking at something in English, and they're translating it to another language, but it looks like the actual picture itself. They actually rewrite the real-world image and change it. It's called WordLens. That's a very useful business application. It can make you very functional in that situation. That has real utility, but it's not something we could have ever done without the really good connections, without the good high-quality sensors, and without the compute power to actually go and do that. That's amazing. Another one of my favorite apps, it provides what I call the virtual assistant button. There's apps that'll give you the pizza button, so you can fill out all the information about what your favorite order and what your credit cards is. You hit the button, and it knows where you are with a GPS. A pizza shows up. That's all you have to do. But I use something called Taxi Magic. It adds the taxi button to your phone. I give it my credit card and some of my preferences, and as long as you're in a city with computer-dispatched taxis, it's integrated. You hit a button, and they say, great, a taxi's on its way. Here's the driver's name. It's 5 miles away. And you get these rolling notifications. It's 2 miles away. It's a mile away. It's outside, right, waiting for you. And that's something that someone dreamed up and said, hey, there's a whole dispatch system out there. Let's put a front-end app. And the taxi companies didn't do it, just like we're not putting and creating the apps to do the same thing for our companies. And that's really the challenge I put to you, saying, whatever your company does, you need to have that button. And you need to put it on phones, and you need to do it now. Or other companies will do it. They will disintermediate your business, and you're going to be a back-end supplier. You will not be strategic. Another great app is a multi-point video conferencing application called Uvu, but there's a bunch of them now. Because you're walking around, and telepresence is really important, right? Unified communications and telepresence are really coming a long way, but these are just free apps that allow you to talk to 4, 6, even 12 in one application. People at the same time. You get the camera, the front-facing camera, and anywhere you are, you can have a live meeting, face-to-face meeting with a bunch of people in 12 different locations. This is just the beginning. That's exciting, right? And again, that's where we can take advantage of all the time and the margins and the fact that so many enterprise workers, 90% of enterprise workers are mobile. If by that they mean they have to go to another site at least once a month. I was talking to a CIO of a very large power construction company, one of the biggest in the world. And safety is their most important thing. That's the core to their culture. And they had applications that allowed to document safety incidents. But they're able to create a mobile application that changed the entire process. Every day they got to walk the production line and make sure everything's OK and go through this checklist. And then what it will do is, because this app now knows where they are, it can highlight where accidents happened before and remind everyone, this is what happened here, this is how it's fixed, but be careful, this is where it can happen. And they can even, when they do after-action reports, they also record video of what happened there so that people can learn. They'll have somebody walking through and pointing at all the equipment and what happened, so that the postmortem is available to anybody who walks by that area with that application. It fundamentally changed what was possible. It greatly improved their safety culture, in their opinion. I mean, they just built the app and deployed it like 6 months ago, but it's revolutionizing the way that they do things. But again, it has all these sensors. It allows you to capture all this information and integrate it into what you do. And the other thing I see is, other than the CRM-like application, business intelligence. I see most enterprise companies building apps are not building really good apps. They're not consumerized, and that's the warning I'm going to give you is the bar is very high, and we have to build competency quickly. The challenge is people want all their back-end systems integrated and connected, and they want that same user experience that they're getting from the other mobile applications. So that's going to be one of the challenges. So the smart mobility lesson, it's not just about computing that you can move around, right? It's a fundamental reinvention of computing in a number of ways. And we'll go into the details of why that is. And it creates new possibilities we didn't have before. We have to up our game in terms of reconceiving how we think about our application landscape, our content landscape, systems of engagement, systems of record, the whole thing. We have to reinvent our businesses around this. I do think speed is really the only issue. We can actually do this, even though smart mobility is qualitatively different. These devices are bristling with sensors. Near-field communication, we're going to have 200 million mobile devices with NFC in it in the next year. I see no enterprises tracking this. Yet it's going to revolutionize timekeeping and all sorts of other activities so that it's integrated in mobile devices. Mobile payments, NFC allows you to put sensors anywhere, and the phone can interact with that sensor, and it's all proximity-based. And it's secure, so you can monetize it and do other things. As we talked about, they're always connected. That makes a huge difference right there. But they have location awareness in 3D space. If you have an iPhone, chances are really good it has a 3D gyroscope if it wasn't one of the original ones. It knows exactly where it is in 3D space, where it's oriented and how it's angled and positioned. That is amazing, and it allows things like the Star Walk or the Word Lens and other things to take place. App stores. We'll talk about some of the other disruptive capabilities of it. But long battery life. I actually don't want to bring my laptop because I know it's going to run out of battery power on the plane. I know my iPad won't. Even if it's a really long flight, I'll be able to use that iPad the entire time. That really that changes things. Always on. I can't stress how the fact that it's always available in those margins that we talked about so that people can get something done. They can be more productive in the points in time that they couldn't normally be productive. And that's a fair amount of the time for workers that travel a lot. Touch-based interfaces. While that actually presents some challenges, one of the things we have to learn about touch-based interfaces and what they mean. How do we make people productive? How to design business applications around touch, right? The GUI changed everything, but I see no real emphasis on touch. We think that if we understand graphical interfaces, no problem, we'll figure out touch. But it is a different discipline. Voice control, obviously, is very big and becoming integrated more and more into the new operating systems that these are available. These are, we're seeing now for the first time, Windows is actively threatened. I see Apple is not the most responsive enterprise vendor. And when I say that to CIOs, they go, yeah, well, they're getting better. But we now have major new suppliers who have created entirely new operating systems that we're very unfamiliar with how to secure and support and do other things with. On the other hand, if you've ever crawled through the iOS SDK, you know it's capable of truly amazing things. It's enormous and very feature-rich and does so many things. So it's the opportunities there. So if you look at it, I often recommend saying, well, for simple applications that are used infrequently, HTML5 is actually OK. Right? The users aren't going to live in them. They're not going to expect that high level of experience. And if they don't like it, it doesn't matter because they don't use it very often. But there's this challenge. This is a Venn diagram showing what a browser-based system can do and what a local client can do. And while they have some commonality, each has a lot of really important strengths that the other doesn't have, or weaknesses, depending on how you look at it. But this is going to be the big challenge. I see a lot of IT departments are defaulting to, oh, we're just going to mobile enable it by putting it in the browser. That is tremendously inadequate for anything that is frequently used, core to the business, or that users find highly valuable. That's the challenge. So the other cautionary tale is, in the 90s, for those of you who were in the business back then, you know how hard we fought for open standards, right? And like the web. Web was so successful because no company was in charge of it. It was simple open standards defined by us, right? So the level playing field is as level as it could be, right? So open standards from open standards bodies. And we see that mobile devices, if there's a knock on them, and they have tremendous opportunity and potential, and are realizing that actively right now, is that they're proprietary technologies. The web messed up, if you will. I'm a huge believer in how the internet has transformed civilization and business. But one place where the standards fell down is it didn't keep up with technology, right? What mobile devices are capable of, and the standards just haven't been there. HTML5 is close. It's going to have orientation and location and some other things that never showed up on web standards, right? So you never had to have location in a web page. Why would you? So the real challenge with the mobile versus the web is that they're hard to switch proprietary platforms. The choice and the cost effectiveness of open standard-based technology, the longevity we heard in the previous session. Open standards also give us access to our history and our culture long term. That's really important, and we're willingly giving it up if we get too committed to this. So that's going to be one of the signature challenges. And we've got to step up and fight that battle again, I'm afraid, even though we were so successful that we've almost forgotten that piece of history. We fought so hard for open standard-based technology for so long, we finally got it. Most large vendors have something at least based, most of their products are based on open standards. Data can be imported and exported and can be read, is kept in formats we can reach and understand. And the challenge, of course, with mobile is that we may lose that. So app stores. Every single global CIO I've spoken with in the last 3 months, and that's a large number of them, is planning to have their own internal app store. Right? So enterprise app stores is the name of the game. Over 100 different companies make them. In 5 years, only a handful of them will still be around. That's the technology game. They have the potential to disrupt it. And there's a lot of discussions about, do we take it over and do we white label apps from the public app stores and then put our own in, or do we have 2 app stores, one for consumer apps, one for our own enterprise apps? Lots of people are going around and around how to do that, right? And app stores have spread well beyond mobile now. It's all about, the app stores have now spread to all software. So that's really the challenge, and we're seeing a lot about app stores in the coming year. You'll see it'll be a hot topic in your organization. So to wrap up, how do you get started? I mean, really started, not just paving the cow path. building competency. That's one of the biggest challenges we have. It's organization-wide. It's the whole IT organization. We're going to have to turn that very large ship. Atomization versus big apps hasn't been figured out yet. Experiment. I'm on the atomization side. I think you're going to get 10 to 100 times more apps. You're going to have to go BYOD in a big way. I think that model I talked to you about is going to be the natural endpoint. The far superior user experience is what we see in the surveys and all the research, and when we talk to people, that's what they crave. They want that really wonderful experience with what you're providing on the enterprise side. And so the end goal, where you're going to end up, and the shortcut, and I think more organizations are going to have to go straight there, is mobile first. That's the title of this presentation, and that's really the message that I'm trying to send to you today. So I think it's an exciting time. I think we can avoid disruption, but we have to take the changes to the technology landscape very seriously. Thank you very much.